Hey Royals, welcome back to my channel. I'm Josette. So for today's video I'm going to be talking about the difference between sister locks, micro locks, and interlocks. What are the differences between these three types of locks? Let's get into the video. So first of all, I'm doing something a little bit different with my micro locks. I did a little side part. What do you think? I'm trying to do something with my 2 to 3 inches. There is so much information and misinformation out there about the differences between sister locks, micro locks, and now interlocks. Like, there are so many different terms, and especially if you're just getting into the whole lock community, it's very confusing. I was out of the lock community for a year after my big chop, and even in my first lock journey there was a lot less information out there compared to what's out there now. So let's get into it now. My information may not be perfect, but this is what I've gotten from research, from pages I follow on Instagram, from knowledge I've just picked up along the way. So make sure to comment below what your experiences are, what your definitions are. Please comment down below to share some of the knowledge. I feel like it's very important to be informed about the different types of locks when you're going to a loctician or when you're just reaching out to people to know more about these types of locks, because there are scammers out there, there are people posing as locticians, so it's really important to just be knowledgeable so that if they say something that doesn't quite make sense, that you're just like, what, really? You'll know that if they're actually bringing facts to you, or they're just giving you information because they want to rip you off, they want to seem knowledgeable so that they can charge you more, etc., etc. First, let's talk about micro locks. Micro locks are what I have installed in my hair. So micro locks are usually installed with one of these three methods: 2-strand twists, braids, or interlocking. And although it's less common, you can also install micro locks with comb coils or finger coils. Micro locks are typically maintained, retightened using the interlocking method, but some people actually choose to retwist with their fingers, and they are always smaller than traditional locks. I would say a micro lock set can range anywhere from 250 locks to 700 plus, but I really hate to put a number on it because your lock count also depends on your hair density. So 2 people can have the exact same size of locks with a totally different lock count depending on their hair density. So what I mean is, if someone with fine hair has 1/4 inch parts, they're going to end up with less locks than someone who has high density hair and 1/4 inch parts, if that makes sense. So yeah, I hate to put a number on it because hair density really does change your lock count. But basically with micro locks, your parting is typically smaller than 1/2 inch. So now let's get into what sister locks are so that we can compare and contrast. I get comments pretty often that my locks are referred to as sister locks, but that is not the case. I do not have sister locks. So sister locks were created and trademarked by Dr. Joanne Cornwell in 1993. She has also curated a line of sister locks products specifically made for sister locks. That includes the Sister Lock tool, which is also trademarked, the Sister Lock shampoo, and a couple more products that are on the Sister Lock website. There are Sister Lock consultants who are professionally trained, and they actually go through a training system or training classes, however you want to say that, and they're trained on the exact Sister Lock technique, including the grid layout, which is very specific to sister locks. Typically people with sister locks have an average of 400 locks. Now whether you have low density or high density hair, that is a pretty high amount of locks, and that is just an average. So if you have sister locks and you ended up with like 380, that doesn't mean you suddenly don't have sister locks. It all depends on how and who installed your locks. Was it an actual certified sister lock consultant or trainee? Then you have sister locks. If it was some other person who claims they were a trainee but they don't actually know the proper technique for a grid, then it's not Sisterlocks. It's really just about that trademarked Sisterlock grid layout and technique, which is pretty hush-hush. So once you're, like, say you take the classes and you become a consultant, then you'll be on the in and you'll know exactly how the layout is. Although there are now a lot of Instagram pages and businesses popping up of people who are Sisterlock trained, and you can see through their pictures what the grid looks like. Yeah, so if you have less than 400 locks, that doesn't mean you're kicked out of the group. It's just an average, and that's also on their website. The difference between Sisterlocks and Microlocks comes down also to the price. Sisterlocks are way more expensive than Microlocks. Why is that? Because it's trademarked. There really is no other specific reason other than that. Also, it requires the consultants and trainees to follow a strict guideline. From what I've seen online, Sisterlocks can typically, the price can vary from $750 for 4 inches of hair upwards to $1,300. It also, I noticed, varies on the skill of the Sisterlock consultant. So a trainee is not going to charge as much as a consultant. If you go to someone who's been in the Sisterlock game for years and their grids are immaculate, then you're going to be paying considerably more. So I've seen, yeah, like upwards of $1,200, $1,300 for an install, and the install price usually doesn't include the consultation, which is always a requirement when you're getting your Sisterlocks, is to do a consultation first. That's when they assess your hair. So a consultation, I've seen $100 for a consultation. So it's getting to be a pretty penny. A lot of people do switch to a trainee just because it is more affordable, it's easier on your purse. A lot of people also do choose to go to a consultant because they know exactly what they want, and they want that perfect grid, the envied grid. Now me, I'm not huge on a grid. I did want it to be a bit more laid out this time around, and I'll link my videos of my mom doing my install. She's not a professional, but she is really good at installing locks, and she did have clients in the past, and I believe she's taking clients again. Don't quote me on that. So yeah, I totally understand going to a Sisterlock consultant because some of those grids are so satisfying to look at and just so perfect and symmetrical. So I totally understand that hype, but just make sure that you're prepared to fork out the money for it. And also, if you're going to get a grid that perfect, I feel like most people will also go back and get their reties done with the same person, just to keep up with that look, keep up with the grid, and make sure that everything is looking perfect. So on the flip side, with Microlocks, it is a lot more affordable to start your lock journey. There's also a lot more freedom in choosing how you want to start your locks. I've seen prices like $250, $300, and I've also seen upwards to like $600, $700, depending on the size. Some people determine what they charge based on the size that you request. So unlike Sisterlocks, you cannot request a size of Sisterlocks. They do that all for you and decide what's best for your hair type and your hair history. But with Microlocks, you can just choose and request the size that you want. So yeah, depending on the length to start with Microlocks as well, you might get charged more money. So for maintenance, comparing the two, with Sisterlocks, interlocking is the only method to maintain. There is no other method. Yeah, it's recommended by most Sisterlocks consultants to get your retie done every 4 to 6 weeks. That time frame is not going to work for everybody, and I've seen a lot of people's testimonies saying that they know their hair and how they can stretch it to 8 weeks. That really is up to you. I personally think 4 weeks is really soon to get your hair redone. I'm doing every 6 weeks. I'm going to be doing every 6 weeks personally. So just beware of people who want a guaranteed head of hair in their seat to do every month. Make sure that the person, the Sisterlock consultant or trainee you're working with, is genuine and genuinely cares about your hair and your edges. It's also about understanding your own hair and being able to say, yeah, I'm not gonna come every 4 weeks, I'm gonna come every 6 weeks. if they give you attitude for not going every 4 weeks, you should find someone new. So yeah, for microlocks, I recommend retightening every 6 to 8 weeks. It also depends on how fast your hair grows. If you have hair growing at a slower rate, don't rush in at like the 6-week mark if you don't have a lot of new growth. The whole process of retightening itself, it creates tension, even if you're not doing it really tightly, which I also don't recommend. You don't need to retighten super tight. I know it's so satisfying to look at, but you should not have a headache after you're retightening. Okay, so I've mentioned the major differences being the price, the maintenance, and the whole process of getting started. So now I'm going to go into interlocks. So I am not a professional on this topic just because it recently occurred to me that this was a thing. I think interlocks is trademarked now, but it just confuses me even more, to be honest, and let's talk about it. From what I've seen, interlocks are usually larger than sister locks, and the only way that they're started is, of course, with the interlocking method. Interlocks, from what I've seen, can be small, medium, or large. So I've seen people start traditional sized locks with the interlocking method. I know, it's confusing. To me, it makes it so confusing calling it interlocks, but I guess it's the only term that makes sense to use. And it's also just a way to stand apart from the crowd, and for business purposes, it's kind of like a new phrase, it's a new word, I should say. So it's a new term, and it makes sense that someone would want to utilize that to promote their business, and only focusing on using the interlocking method makes sense, especially if you're a sister lock consultant and you don't want to start people's microlocks with like the braiding method or the 2-strand twist method. It definitely makes sense to just offer services for interlocks and sister locks because you're doing the exact same thing. You're starting the locks the same way, but they're just in various sizes. Comment below any knowledge that you have about interlocks, if you've heard of them, if I'm just late to the party, and also comment below what you know about sister locks and microlocks. I would love to read your comments about those as well. So that is it for the video. I hope that this was helpful. Okay, so make sure to follow me on Instagram right here. I am updating you on my microlocks journey on there, so make sure to go and follow me, and I will definitely be seeing you in my next video. Bye!